Let's just tackle that illusion of stock picking. Okay? That is the illusion that someone can choose stocks with a belief that those stocks are going to do well in the future. The illusion is that the investment advisors, whether that's an individual advisor or the head of some mutual fund company, can consistently or predictably outperform the market based upon their knowledge and selecting individual securities. And to start laying this out for all of you, what I think is easiest to do is we're just going to rewind the tape back to an event most of us are familiar with, which is the Allied eventual victory in World War II. Now, when we've got a room full of people, and some people are buffs a little bit on World War II and know a lot about it, we'll have people raise their hand about where was World War II won. And it's often that we'll hear things like it was the Pacific Theater or Battle of the Bulge, or it was the Allies' press into Europe on a particular date, D-Day, all that. All of that is appropriate. There's nothing wrong with it, except it's incomplete. Because what I want to offer is that a huge part of World War II may have been won in a small, smoke-filled apartment in Harlem, New York, populated by mathematicians. You see, these folks that were in this room would get a bunch of data sent to them by the generals out in the field. And those generals would send things like scatter graphs. So for those of you listening, right now I've got up on screen this aircraft with a whole bunch of bullet holes in it. And they would send this back to this team of mathematicians, and their job was, we need to figure out where these planes are being hit. We need to armor them more effectively. And then we also need to know how much less in payload, meaning what can they carry in terms of bombardment capacity on the enemy and fuel load. Because long-range bombing was one of our huge advantages in World War II. And the mathematicians worked everything up, and they were about to send it out the door. And right when they were going to send it out the door, what happened? Another mathematician stopped it who wasn't working directly on that project because he saw the data leaving. And he said, stop, we can't send that to the generals. And of course, all the other mathematicians are like, why would we not do that? The gentleman's name was Abraham Wald. And he said, you're studying the wrong aircraft. So what do you mean? These are the aircraft that they sent us all the bullet holes of. Why would we now say we're studying the wrong aircraft? He said, you're studying the aircraft that returned after delivering their payload. Those are not the ones we have to worry about. The ones we have to worry about are the ones that didn't make it, that you don't have the bullet holes for. Now, for those of you watching our show, you're going to notice on this graph that there's some key areas that never got impacted by those bullet holes. And that is the engines, the cockpit, and a particular weak part of the wing. Now, when people see this second picture, they suddenly go, well, of course we were studying the wrong aircraft. They corrected it. They only put additional armor on specific areas of the aircraft, allowing them to still have their long-range bombing capacity and be able to deliver enormous payloads on the enemy, which I think may have governed the tide of World War II. And many economists lean toward this idea that later was further laid out by Abraham Wald of survivorship bias. That is, that one of the things that happens for all of us is we go down the road, say in business or life, and we're only looking at the survivors. And then we underestimate the amount of risk on the other side of the equation. A simple one would be, look at all of you as business owners listening, that we know that most businesses are not successful. But you're not present to that every day because every other business owner you're around is successful. They live in your neighborhood, they go to your church, all of those things. And the people who have some sort of enormous business failure regularly drop out of the community of other business owners because they have to go get a job or do something else. So all that to say that we have to be careful of this idea of survivorship bias. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe, ring that bell, and when you get a moment, pick up my book on Amazon, Sound Financial Advice. It's the kind of book that's easy to read, but hard to forget all the knowledge you learned.